There's a reason why your presence has been unsettling energies lately, and it's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because your existence is proof that not everyone can be controlled. Welcome back, beloved souls, to another spiritual decoding, where we don't just interpret signs, we expose the hidden wars happening in the spirit realm. Today's message is not light, it's not passive, and it's not for the faint of heart. This is a word for those who have realized that their very aura has become a battlefield, and what's being triggered in others is terrifying even to them. What I'm about to share may confirm something you've felt but couldn't name. A strange tension, a shift in people's behavior, an obsession masked as interest, or worse, a disinterest that's way too calculated to be real. Someone in your energetic field has mistaken access for ownership. They thought they could sample your light and walk away unchanged, but instead, they're spiraling. You were the mirror that forced them to see the emptiness behind their performance. And now, their passion has turned into poison, their desire into dominance, and their attraction into aggression. This message is for those sensing that someone's admiration for you has mutated into a silent war. If you've ever felt watched, envied, or energetically manipulated by someone who once seemed harmless, write in the comments, "I see the mask." That declaration alone is a spiritual shield. Please enjoy this moment and leave a like. Subscribe if you want to continue receiving these divine alerts as they flow. And don't just watch, embrace your evolution. Because when you realize that your rarity threatens the fragility of others, you will never feel guilty about shining again. There's a type of soul that doesn't fall in love. They fall into obsession. Not because of who you are on the outside, but because of how your energy exposes what they lack inside. This individual, this so-called acquaintance, started off drawn to something in you that they couldn't name. But over time, their curiosity became need, and need became attachment. And now, they don't want just to be around your light. They want to own it, silence it, even distort it, so they don't have to confront the truth it reflects about them. Your spiritual team may have nudged you away from this connection early on. Maybe it was a subtle discomfort, a strange dream, or an inner knowing that said, "Don't go too far with this one." That wasn't paranoia, that was protection. Because what looked like harmless affection was actually a seed of obsession growing in secret. And now that your energy has matured and expanded, that seed has cracked open, and what's emerging is something darker than you expected. In some cases, this isn't just a one-way obsession. You're caught in a triangle where the lines between soulmate, acquaintance, and shadow enemy are blurred. For some of you, the same person is playing two different roles, sweet on the surface, but spiritually chaotic beneath. For others, there's a third party watching from the outside, jealous of what they'll never truly access. Either way, you've become the centerpiece of a spiritual entanglement, and everyone involved is losing their grip. What complicates this even more is that your twin flame or soul connection may have pretended not to see you, not in your real light. They denied your value, rejected your essence, and tried to convince themselves and you that you were replaceable. That there were others like you, that your soul wasn't rare. But deep down, they knew better. They always knew. And their denial created a spiritual vacuum, one that drew in a darker energy. This outsider, or shadow twin, entered that gap with precision. They saw your vulnerability, your heartbreak, your moment of questioning, and they slipped in quietly, like smoke through a cracked door. And while your divine counterpart was busy lying to themselves, this entity was watching you with silent hunger. Not love, hunger. They don't want your companionship. They want possession. They want control. And they want the version of you that's still healing, because that version is easier to manipulate. Meanwhile, the one who once claimed to love you was terrified by the power of your presence. They didn't expect that choosing you would mean facing themselves. so they ran. And in that absence, the shadows came to feed. This is why you feel confusion, nausea, spiritual tension, because there's someone orbiting you like a moon with no light of its own, only reflecting and feeding on what you emit. And they'll change everything, their appearance, their behavior, even their beliefs, just to stay close to your warmth. But what's dangerous isn't how much they want you. It's how far they're willing to go to convince themselves that you want them back. They may act aloof. They may pretend to have options. But behind the scenes, they are restructuring their life around you, checking your energy, mirroring your posts, scanning your frequency like it's the only thing keeping them alive. You're not just a muse to them. You're an obsession they don't even understand. And that confusion is turning toxic by the day. They'll smile in public, speak politely, and pretend they've moved on. But their soul is stuck in orbit around you. They might post about someone new, talk about being unbothered, or say things like, "I'm healing." But those are just performances meant to mask a deeper truth. Inside, they are spiraling. They feel you slipping from their grip, and rather than face the pain of true detachment, they rehearse control. They imagine scenarios, replay your words, and assign meaning to every glance, every silence, every shift in your energy. It's not love, it's spiritual codependency disguised as confidence. The strangest part is how this person once prided themselves on being untouchable. They used to walk into rooms and feel like the prize. They were the one rejecting, ghosting, keeping people on standby. But then came you, someone they couldn't read, couldn't manipulate, couldn't fully figure out. Your light wasn't performative. Your presence wasn't transactional. You didn't want attention. You radiated truth. And for someone used to smoke and mirrors, that truth was unbearable. It made them question everything they built their self-worth upon. This person doesn't fear rejection from the world. They fear rejection from you, because you're the only one who could shatter their illusion. And the more they try to detach, the more they find themselves haunted by the idea of losing you completely. But instead of coming forward with humility, they hide behind personas. They choose control over connection. They choose image over intimacy. And in doing so, they exile themselves from the very thing they desire most, real love. But they haven't left completely. No, not at all. For many of you, this person is still present in the shadows, lurking, watching, calculating. You may not see their face, but you feel their energy. You feel it when your mood suddenly drops. You feel it when you sense someone pulling on your spirit late at night. You feel it in moments of clarity that get clouded for no reason. This is not imagination. It's spiritual interference. And it's coming from someone who wants access to you without accountability. They can't handle the fullness of your light, yet they also can't live without it. So they've chosen a third path, distortion. They want to warp how others see you, how you see yourself, how your story unfolds. And for some of you, this has turned into subtle sabotage, relationships that fall apart mysteriously, opportunities that slip through your fingers, moments of breakthrough suddenly turning into confusion. These aren't coincidences. They're energetic attempts to dim your rising. The irony? This person has spent their entire life being the one who is chased. They've built their identity around being desirable, unattainable, admired. But you flipped the script. You didn't need them. You mirrored them. And in that mirror, they saw their highest self, not the fake, polished version they show to the world, but the raw, unfiltered, divine version that they've buried under years of masks and ego. And instead of choosing to rise with you, they chose to run from themselves. Now they're standing in a valley of conflict, torn between the desire to be close to you and the fear of being exposed. And in that tension, they're doing damage, not just to themselves, but to the energetic fabric between you. Their soul cries out for intimacy, but their ego demands superiority. And the result is a fractured bond leaking poison into your spiritual field. It's no longer about love, it's about power, control, and fear. And the longer they deny the truth, the darker their energy becomes. This is why you've been feeling drained after certain dreams, why you wake up with a heaviness you can't explain. It's because someone is tapping into your energy field while pretending they've let you go. They haven't. In fact, they've gone deeper, not into healing, but into strategy, into spiritual manipulation, into energetic obsession. This is why discernment is more critical now than ever. Your power has grown, and so has the shadow's fixation on silencing it. You see, this person was never used to giving their full self to anyone. They always held something back, just enough to feel in control. And yet, when it came to you, something shifted. You didn't demand more. They simply couldn't hold back. You drew them in with presence, not pressure. And that terrified them, because if they gave themselves to you completely, they'd no longer be the one with the upper hand. They'd be vulnerable, naked, exposed. And for someone who's built a life on power plays, true vulnerability feels like death. They never told you how much you changed them, but their silence was never empty. It was loud with fear, with awe, with self-loathing. They became someone else in your presence, someone more real, more open, more alive. But instead of embracing that version, they killed it. They buried it under sarcasm, distance, and carefully curated lies. They chose the easier death, the one where they pretend you never mattered. But your memory keeps resurrecting in their soul. Now, instead of showing up with love, they show up with control. Instead of reaching out with clarity, they stalk with confusion. Instead of walking in truth, they slither in shadows. And you, the chosen one, are left to interpret signs, manage energetic warfare, and protect your peace. Because their love wasn't built on light, it was built on lack. And any love built on lack will eventually demand your silence, so it doesn't have to face its own emptiness. That's not connection. That's a spiritual trap. You were meant to awaken them, yes, but not to babysit their ego, not to dim yourself so they feel safe. Your light exposed their illusion, and now they're mad at the mirror instead of confronting the mess. And what's worse, they're not the only ones. There's another energy watching, someone else who wants to be where they once stood. And this person, this outsider, is just as dangerous in their own way, because they're not here to love you either. They're here to compete for you like a prize. This acquaintance has been silently observing your story, seeing the cracks, the pain, the unfinished chapters, and they've made a decision. They want in, but not because they understand your soul, not because they respect your process. They want in because they see your light being wasted and believe they can do better. They don't know the depth of your path. They don't know the war you've survived. They just want to insert themselves into your energy like a thief in the night, wearing charm like a mask and good intentions like camouflage. But here's the danger. This person isn't acting out of love either. They're acting out of ego. Their desire to rescue you is rooted in pride, not purpose. They want to be the one who heals you so they can feel powerful. And when you don't respond the way they expect, when your spirit doesn't perform for their fantasy, they'll turn, just like the other did. Because what both of these energies have in common is this: they want access without submission, reward without reverence, and love without transformation. You didn't ask for this attention, chosen one. You never begged to be desired, envied, or chased. You simply walked in your truth. And the moment you did, those living in deception were forced to confront themselves. This is why you're being spiritually targeted. Not because you're weak, but because your authenticity is disruptive. You are proof that it's possible to be both powerful and pure, to love deeply without losing yourself, and to walk alone without losing your worth. And that makes you dangerous in the eyes of those who rely on manipulation. Both of these energies, the twin who ran and the acquaintance who watches, are bound by one common thread. They don't know how to love without control. They want the feeling of intimacy without the cost of transparency. They want your loyalty without your liberation. But you, chosen one, were never born to be caged. You didn't go through all that pain just to be someone's possession. You are not here to soothe egos. You are here to shatter illusions. And that's why their spirits are at war with yours. The twin flame, the soulmate, the one who should have known better. They still feel your pull. They feel it in the silence, in the songs, in the spaces where you used to exist. But instead of rising to meet your level, they resent that you ever made them feel small. And so, in a twisted act of survival, they began sabotaging their own blessing. You were the answer to their inner prayer, but they weren't ready for what it would cost. And now, they punish your reflection for the mirror they shattered themselves. What's even more disturbing is how deep this resentment runs. For some of you, this person has tried to twist the narrative, convincing others that you were too much, too intense, too spiritual, not because it's true, but because it protects their ego from the truth. If they admit your worth, they have to admit what they lost. And if they admit what they lost, they'd have to face the fact that they never deserved it to begin with. So instead, they pretend, they lie, they sabotage, all in the name of pride. Meanwhile, the outsider is watching this unfold like a movie. They see the cracks, they see the tension, and they think to themselves, I would never hurt them like that. But what they don't understand is that this isn't about you being hurt. It's about you being chosen. And to walk beside someone who is chosen requires more than good intentions. It requires capacity, depth, surrender. This outsider doesn't carry the blueprint for your calling. They just crave the light because they've never cultivated their own. Now, you're being pulled energetically in multiple directions. One person who can't let go but won't rise. Another who wants in but can't comprehend the cost. And here you are, in the middle of this spiritual tug-of-war, holding your peace like a sword. The enemy's tactic is to wear you down, to make you second-guess your intuition, to make you feel like love only exists if you lower your standards. But the truth is this: you are the standard, and your presence alone exposes the shadows in others. This is why your very existence feels like judgment to them. Even when you say nothing, they feel convicted. Even when you love them, they feel unworthy. Even when you forgive them, they spiral. Because it's not about you. It's about what your frequency awakens. You are the evidence that healing is possible, that truth is powerful, that spiritual alignment is real. And for those who still live in performance, you are the fire that exposes the false gold. That's why they fear you. That's why they envy you. That's why they want to own you, but never truly love you. What these people didn't expect is that your silence would be louder than their noise, that your absence would sting deeper than any presence they've ever known. They thought they could provoke you, pull you in, confuse you, but instead, you went quiet, you went inward. And in doing so, you broke the very spell they were trying to cast. You see, nothing terrifies a manipulative spirit more than a soul that no longer reacts. You became unreachable, not because you're cold, but because you've healed beyond their access. And yet, some of them are still trying, skulking, lurking, checking your page, your energy, your atmosphere, not out of love, but out of obsession. They need to know who has your attention. They need to know if you've forgotten them, moved on, elevated. Because your elevation feels like their expiration, you are the proof that they lost something irreplaceable. And instead of repenting, they've chosen revenge. Not always overt, but spiritually aggressive, disguised in shadows. Some are even crossing lines, chosen one. For a few of you, The energy I'm picking up is not just energetic anymore. It's physical. Attempts to get close to your space. Strange coincidences. Unexplained tech glitches. Unnatural feelings of being watched. That's not paranoia. It's discernment. These spirits are desperate, and desperation makes them reckless. This is where you must armor up, not just in the natural, but in the spirit. Psalms 91, Ephesians 6. Cover yourself in truth daily, because this isn't just about love anymore. It's about possession versus purpose. Will you be pulled into old cycles of illusion, or will you rise into your divine timeline? That's what's at stake. And your answer isn't in what you say, it's in what you choose. Every no you speak in silence, every door you don't reopen, every temptation you resist, it's all a declaration to the spirit realm. I know who I am now, and that knowing is your shield. Meanwhile, those who underestimated your discernment are now spiraling in confusion. They thought you'd always respond, always rescue, always return. But your healing taught you how to release without announcement, to protect your peace without permission. And now, they don't just miss you, they fear who you're becoming, because the version of you that used to tolerate spiritual chaos is dead and buried. And resurrection isn't coming for the old you, it's birthing the new. In the spirit, you've already crossed over. You're no longer on the same frequency. That's why old cycles feel so suffocating now. That's why certain people, places, and energies feel like poison. You've ascended, but your presence is still triggering unhealed timelines in others. That's why they lash out, lie, or attempt to re-enter. They're not coming back to love you. They're coming back to regain control over the version of you they could manipulate. And that version no longer exists. Let this be clear. Your healing is not just about you. It's about the generations after you. It's about the spiritual shift that your bloodline has been waiting for. You're not here to repeat trauma. You're here to rewrite destiny. And that's why the attacks are getting louder. That's why your peace feels threatened. The enemy doesn't waste energy on empty vessels. The pressure is proof of your power. And as you keep standing, the heavens are backing you. Angelic reinforcements are surrounding you, even now. The war around you isn't personal. It's prophetic. You are the one they didn't expect. The one sent to break the cycle, to expose the lies, to make darkness tremble without ever raising your voice. That's why the warfare has intensified. That's why old flames are returning with sweet words wrapped in deception. That's why new admirers are approaching with smiles, but carrying empty vessels. Your discernment is your lifeline now, and your silence is not weakness. It's spiritual wisdom forged in fire. You don't owe anyone access to your healing. You don't need to explain your elevation. The time for teaching people how to treat you is over. Now, they either meet you in truth or they miss you in regret. Let them sit with the choices they made. Let them observe from the sidelines. You are not cruel. You are called. And the more you honor your calling, the more the counterfeit connections will fall away. That is divine justice, unfolding right in front of your enemies. So if this word stirred something deep in your soul, write in the comments, I choose purpose over possession. Declare it in the realm of spirit. Let it echo into the places still trying to hold on to you. And if you've felt this tension, this confusion, this energetic war, tap that like button as your spiritual agreement. Please subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the revelations coming next. This is a divine space, and you're not just watching, you're awakening. Let this be your line in the sand. I also want to take a moment to say thank you to every beautiful soul who supports this channel through Buy Me a Coffee. Your generosity helps us continue creating these soul-shifting messages and improving the quality of everything we offer. If you feel called to support this mission, the link is right there in the first pinned comment. There's a video right here on the screen that's waiting to take you even deeper into your awakening. Watch it next, or better yet, binge the playlist and feed your spirit until overflow. You are not alone, chosen one. You are protected. I'll see you in the next message. Until then, stay safe, stay covered, and stay extraordinary.